Hello, welcome everyone to the artist talk by Gibson Martelli on Nino. So first, maybe we do a little round of introductions. So Bruno and Ruth, would you like to introduce briefly yourselves?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ruth, Ruth Gibson, and I'm a visual artist and choreographer and work with Bruno, and have done for many years. I'm also an associate professor at the Centre for Dance Research at Coventry University. So I straddle academic and practice work more recently.
Bruno Martelli. I'm a visual artist. I guess I work with computery things sometimes. Well, I'm not at a university.
You are.
Oh, I guess I am actually now at a university. I'm slightly at a university. Yeah, I'm doing some small teaching at NYU.
One of their campuses, or
it's one in London, conveniently.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm Nuno Correia, and I'll be moderating this nice, cozy artist talk. And I'm also coordinator of MODINA, which is the umbrella project under which Nino has been operating, developed and operated. And I'm associate professor at Tallinn University. So it's really great to have you here in Tallinn, and great to have you on board MODINA. So I've been I've been a fan of your work for many years, as you know. Please, sorry.
Well, I was going to say thanks also to STL as well for having us, and Von Correia in this great place.
Thank you. So MODINA is a consortium, so we have 8 partners. Tallinn University is a coordinator, and STL, Sotumato Tensulava here in Estonia, is the host of this showcase. And yeah, it's been great collaborating with STL and all the partners, and it's been interesting to have the project circulating among these different countries, these different centers. So I would like to maybe go back to the origins of your collaboration, and maybe discuss a bit how did you start working together, and how did the intersection of dance and technology emerge? Was it from the onset, or how did that the work around body and embodiment and technology, how did that first happen through your work?
That's a great question.
Bruno came to see a solo dance piece that I did, and said it would be really great to be able to gift the dance to someone else, not in a video format or a documentation format, but actually something that was interactive. So we worked together, and we worked on an interactive CD-ROM, if anyone can remember those.
I remember those.
So that's a very long time ago. And then from then on, we actually tried to work with interactive media on stage, which we've now, in a way, called mixed reality, I think, the early days of mixed reality. So we worked with cameras, live cameras on stage, really risky performances, trying to implement some of the interactive things that we've done on the CD-ROM, actually live with dancers in large-scale venues, actually, and toured those. And then we, I suppose, I don't know who we want to take over, we found the dance world, a particular hierarchy and quite closed and for a certain audience. So we wanted to reach out to other disciplines and other audiences. And so therefore we tried to work with putting performance and interactive work into galleries. And so we stayed there for a very long time, actually. And it's only more recently we've come back into a sort of dance world. And actually not that much changed, to be honest, with the venues and the difficulty of trying to do this kind of work. It's very much still set up No disrespect to venues, but there is a certain way in which performance is viewed, and so it's but that's a long answer to your question. But yeah, so here we are. But we've come back into the dance world, and I think now we're probably going to push into the game world.
And you've been for quite a few years already. You've been in this intersection between the game world, the dance world, virtual worlds, and this kind of universe. It was very fascinating to see your keynote at Movement and Computing, the last one in 2024 in Utrecht, and also to experience your work there. And I've seen other exhibitions of your work. So you have a very vast and fascinating body of work, which focuses in the later, correct me if I'm wrong, but focuses in the later years a lot in this interplay between the body and the virtual, and how these two collide, right? So my question now, and that brings us slowly into Nino, what do you see are the challenges of, because when you think about virtual worlds, we think about disembodiment to a certain degree. We think about gaming, at least I think about kind of a gaming world where a big part of our body is not engaged, right? In the virtual world. And what do you think is the importance of dance and importance of embodiment for these virtual worlds, and what do you see as your take on this, or your approach to virtual worlds and the body? How do you solve this issue of, if you see this as an issue of a lack of embodiment in virtual worlds, typically like in games and related digital artifacts, and how can we solve it? How do you address it in your work?
Don't you think they're visceral? They're not the games. Maybe not gaming hard enough.
Maybe,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just doing it in a very casual way, maybe just on your phone, you might. I mean, if you play, maybe I'm not saying you should, because it's obviously a terrible thing to do. But if you had like loads of time to waste, you could play like one game like a lot and get really into it, and then maybe you would feel more like you were inhabiting the avatar. It might feel more so that if your character died, you might really feel like annoyed or bad, or it might have more of an effect.
So this idea of empathy with the avatar,
or maybe or like you feel like it's actually you. It's you that's being killed if it's that kind of game. You know what I mean? And so, but also as well, maybe if you're going to play like twitchy first-person shooters a lot, then you might you can just go into a kind of a flow state. If you don't do it if you do it a bit harder than casual. So then you just then you kind of forget your physical presence in the world, and you're just in the game. Maybe I mean, having a really big telly kind of helps. You know what I mean? I mean, it's true, right? If you're looking at it on the screen, there's like a lot of periphery around there, and the reason we look at the cinema in a black room is so that we're focusing our attention on the kind of screen. And so if you get it, once you get it big, it's filling up a lot of your visual.
I think it's a tussle, though. I think it's a tussle between what jars and what doesn't jar, and actually how our perceptions change by all different media that we use. Because we're actually using game controllers for this project. We've never done that before. We've made custom-made interfaces, which are either ropes, yacht wheels, or oars, or all sorts of different types of interfaces. And then the body also is an interface. So I think it's more about learning about people coming to different worlds and learning about their perceptual capacity, but also maybe relearning or undoing, or we've sometimes talked about working with avatars as having ideas of out of body embodiment, so that you might feel disembodied, but then somehow you're planted back into a body, and also these terms of strange embodiments, like AIs, like embodiments super loaded, and it depends who you're which discipline you're speaking to, or and I think a lot of it's about attention, actually, what you're attending to, what you're attached to, these kinds of things. Yeah.
But it's very interesting that two aspects, well, at least identify two aspects here in your perspectives, which is the kind of empathy and the kind of connection to the avatar as a form of embodiment, and then the body as interface as another form of embodiment, right? And they may interrelate, the two, right? But I think they're both quite interesting perspectives on this relationship with the virtual, right? How you control it, but also how you connect to it, right? And that's the part that I probably have been missing in my lack of gaming.
But it's interesting because earlier today I saw someone struggling with the game controller. But what was really interesting is that, there is this, and there always has been with interactive work, to really want an immediate reaction and to be gratified. But I think with some of the work that people are exploring now, particularly in mixed realities and VR, it's actually, you have to spend a little bit of time with that. And the time spent and maybe the pace has changed. So it's not just about pressing buttons and triggering, it's more about squeezing and having other ways of thinking about using a controller, which is just buttons, but actually trying to use some of the buttons of the camera, for example. So instead of whizzing around a 360 camera, you actually really pan the camera around. And if you squeeze the triggers, then you can actually induce some of the choreography, so some of the dance sequence. So I think it's trying to put that a little bit, particularly for people who haven't played with, for this piece, haven't played with a game controller.
I mean, we thought a lot about interfaces, and talking to my buddy David Sermon, he was like, because I said, look, lots of people can't use game controllers, and before we started on this project, Ruth had no idea. She just never touched one. She hated it.
Well, I deliberately didn't to be a different, having a different experience of things. So.
And I'm terrible. I just have to. I'm like a mouse and keyboard like type of gamer, right? And so I'm not doing console stuff. But then we were like, okay, but there's actually about a portability and a transportability and a kind of these things are ubiquitous. And David said, well, he said they've been around for like 25 years. People should know how to. It's not like it's like, come on, this is not like some weird thing. It's not some weird thing. It's just people are unfamiliar with it. It's take. But Ruth learned how to use the game controller a bit. But also as well, there is an idea about, I mean, the idea from Steve Benford about the uncomfortable interactions being more memorable and sort of like increasing the difficulty. But for us, in some ways, we were talking about this earlier, but I don't really like if people don't interact with the thing and don't press the buttons. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. It still exists. The thing is there. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't, because it's not actually. We're talking about a game, but actually it isn't a game. And there's always this idea of the ludic scale, where you have a rule-based system like a game like chess at one end, and then at the other end it's a sliding scale, and you get less and less and less rules, and eventually you just end up with play, kind of an open-ended exploration where the actual act of doing it is its own reward. And so where this sits on that scale, because I mean I don't know, right, but it's down there. It's down the kind of like, because you can't win. I mean, it has a start and it has an end, but it's mostly middle, right? It's all like filling. It's not like there's not like a massive climax or anything like that. I mean, there is a kind of climax, but it's not like you're going to win you're going to do it correctly. And we're trying to avoid a situation where people feel like they've tried it and they haven't got everything out of it and they kind of missed it. But also there's an amount it's about the engagement of the audience. And so one of the things early on when we started working with game engine stuff was that we knew that our friends would not be interested to come and see a contemporary dance performance because they would hate that kind of thing, because they would not know how long it would be, and they would be afraid that if they hated it, they would be trapped in this dark room, sitting in the middle of these people, and they would not be able to get out, and it'd be really bad. I kind of feel like that as well about a lot of stuff. And so, but when you go to an installation, you can walk in. If you hate it, just walk straight out, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It's totally easy. The threat level is extremely low. The barrier to entry is very low. And then we're setting up other things which are hard, which are of course like this esoteric, strange game controller for some people who would not say I'm not, because lots of people say to us, I'm not a gamer, which is like fine, but then it's like it's not a game. So, but you know, I don't know how to drive a car, so it's like. Do you know what I mean? Well, I guess nobody's asked me to drive a car, but this is, in some ways, this is why, and this is not really the answer to your question, but we've got this kind of sort of this setup here kind of reflects a more domestic setting, and the idea is to make, we're thinking in part about kind of distribution, but also thinking about this is a kind of experience you could sort of have at home in a very comfortable situation, and you could take as much or as little as you like from it. So you could play it a lot, you could play it a little, or you could play it often, and it would. And so we're trying to make it for the audience very low risk, kind of thing.
Then there's the challenge which you mentioned, which is how to draw people in, right? So that the danger in the installation bit is that you come in and they don't really understand it, and you give up right away without being pulled in, right? And that's where you say, oh, it's still there if you don't interact. So you have these considerations into account, how to design for grabbing, pulling people in, right?
And it's very interesting to talk about that, because actually we have a voiceover of an actress friend of ours for this, and we would really like to do an iteration with her speaking live. And so that would really change, that would change. Yes, and also have a performer and a dance performer in the space too. So there'd be you can shop, but we'll do speak about this.
Oh yeah, maybe.
You're pretending.
No, actually we did. I heard.
So
something about it.
not necessarily like a plant, but it was interesting at the beginning of this project because the residency, we actually did a dance performance with 5 dancers with live music and audience on stage. And the dancers moved around the audience to begin with to pull them in. And then at the end, they could actually then play with the camera and different avatars. And so the beginning of that, there was a dancer at the beginning. As the audience were coming into the space, the dancers already started. And there's a way in which that could happen here, I think. Yeah. But so we probably, it's very early stages with this project, I think, the way it's been shown, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah, so I think so we come back to this idea about distribution, or rather showing the thing, and because one way is it's on a platform, like it's on itch.io, kind of gaming place where you can buy cheap indie games and download them to try, and there's lots of experimental stuff, or something like Steam, which has got more mainstream games, or maybe there's game festivals, and to reach a different audience who wouldn't go and see a contemporary dance performance. And then there's another way of maybe to go and show it as a sort of installation mode in a sort of gallery space, and then there's a kind of in the kind of theatre spaces like this. But there's this kind of, it always becomes there's also kind of money thing, and so like sometimes theatres want to sell tickets, right? Which is because that's what they used to doing. That's how it kind of works. And then of course platforms, they want to either charge you fees, or they want to squeeze money out of somebody somehow. And so I mean it's difficult because yeah, because one of our other pieces, which is using the computer game engine and has an installation set up and has a customized piece of furniture as the interface, which this is like, we almost made it like 20 years ago. It's the opposite of this, with a piece called Swan Quake. Has dance performance in it, motion captured, and it went on a tour. And it went on tour for like 5 years, and it's been seen by like, I don't know, it's like some enormous amount of
with the Barbican
part of this, and it's a kind of animation show, right? And they had this big animation show, and it went all over the world. And so it's been to it was seen by tons and tons of people. So we thought, oh my God, if we'd have had to do this as a tour with dancers, like it would have been absolutely impossible. It'd been like doing, I mean, it's not like Cats, but it's like some, the longest running show in West End, like, and the expense and everything of it. So I don't know. With thinking, I mean, the question we're asking the question of ourselves is what is the distribution model? How does this work? Because we've been in this gallery sort of space, showing in galleries. There's also, of course, the galleries. It's basically a shop where you go and buy some art. Let's face it, because that's kind of really what it is, what they're trying to do. And of course, because it's not really sellable like that. I mean, because then you could get into this, because we've got a gallery and they have some of our virtuality pieces on consignment, so they're there, people can go and buy them, and they're kind of expensive, and there's but they're kind of editioned, right? You know, like a piece of video art where you have an edition of 3 and an artist proof and all that kind of stuff, and it's just like, but I'm like, seriously, are people going to buy this kind of, you know what I mean? It just seems a bit mad.
But let me pick up a little bit on the origins of Nino and how it was developed in the residency, and this idea of the formats, right? The performance format, the gallery format, and the remediation, or whatever you want to call it, like adapting from one modality or one form of presentation into another form of presentation. So Nino originally in the as you mentioned in your residency in Budapest, you had a group of dancers, and it was more of a performance setting with 5 dancers.
Yes.
5 dancers, right, as I remember. And then the dancers would draw towards the end of the performance, and the dancers would draw the participation of the audience in somehow. Is that correct? How I'm characterizing it?
We did it
Yes.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
How we did it, we had the AI camera thing we had used as an actual just a video camera, because anyway, let's not get into that, but we'd put it into like doing mocap mode, and our technician would just come and put it on the stage, and then that was kind of it. And then people kind of figured out.
And the audience just came in.
Kind of figured it
And
out.
started playing.
It's really say
Immediately. Which was great.
Yeah, I think he had to, because we had to set it we had to connect the server, and he had to kind of do the T-pose thing. So we had to stand in front of it, kind of do like a T-pose.
So that's kind of an audience appropriation of the piece in a sense, to a certain degree, right? So they kind of surprised you in a way.
Well, it worked well.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they really, and also as well, I think, they just were not afraid, they're not camera shy.
Yeah.
And so that was something I really enjoyed, is seeing them experiment. And then of course you have some that just show off, and then others that are really intrigued, and then others that and different able bodies too. So that's been really exciting to see that. Yeah.
And your avatars kind of cater for these different bodies, because they are avatars, they change a lot and And so my kind of follow-up question or comment is, so what survived of that iteration of Nino, the, let's call it Budapest iteration, or I know that there's some elements of the dancers here, right? In this piece of that motion capture of the dancers, right? So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the connection between those dancers from Budapest and what we are seeing here?
Are you talking about the avatars?
Well, so the overall shape, the live show was like 45 minutes long, and we made some like virtual environment backdrops, which are some of these scenes, but they were designed for with a fixed virtual camera, right? So it's like a cinematic mode. And so in those scenes, we see some of the avatars which have been animated from motion capture from our performers, not in real time, it's pre-recorded, and then it's got real performers in the room. And so I think there are about 4 or 5 scenes, and there's also one of the worlds in here is like a video world, and this was a video we showed at the beginning of the piece, just in its entirety with the sound. And so we thought, okay, so for touring, we can't bring all the dancers, so we're going to let's make a game, because that's more portable. But then we were like, okay, the trouble is if we just have the 5 worlds, it's going to be really, people will just get through it really quick. So we need to make it so that you can mess around with it for 45 minutes or something like that. And it seems like there's a lot to see. So because this project was sort of a continuation of some research we did with another project called Wow and Flutter, we had some motion capture and some avatars for some other dancers, and some other virtual scenes, and we kind of smooshed the 2 things together.
So in this piece, there's a bit from that previous project and a bit from the Budapest motion capture elements.
Yeah, and I think, are you in this? Are you
and
in
I'm
this?
in this as well.
Yeah, Ruth's in this somehow.
And there's also,
and there's also some characters from another character from another project, which we thought, okay, this is from a virtual reality project we made, and we thought, okay, called the Angry Trash Bag, and we thought we really like Angry Trash Bag, and we want him to be in there. And there's a man with a silver kind of head, he's in there as well. As a kind of, because we were like, we had this big debate, and it's I don't know, we're not sure if this is the right answer or not, but it's like okay, so like Jack Nicholson, the actor Jack Nicholson, right? It was like he was in The Shining. It's like he can't be in any more films. That's it. He's just done one, because you're only allowed to do one thing.
You're
like you can only do one.
Our avatars are like Jack Nicholson.
No, I'm not saying avatars like Jack, but if you think about it like this, right? If you relate these things, they're not related at all. Take two things.
Typecast.
No, it's like, okay, can we not use an avatar from previous projects and have it as a kind of guest star?
A guest star
rather than or something like that, you know, because it kind of, and it gives a continuity, because Jack Nicholson's been in lots of films, which is fine, right? And no one goes, it's that guy who's in The Shining. He's already in The Shining. How come he's, people believe it, and it's fime.
I see a common thread with Baby from yesterday, where Hollow were using the Minotaur from another play to the other play.
I think there's something about those iterations. I mean, with us, I think for the live piece we did in rehearsal, we worked with the AI camera, and the dancers would try and steal the camera, and then we worked with it live on stage again, which is similar to some of the other work, and using that, and it was kind of a risk to use that, and obviously we haven't got any of that. We did think about embedding a video of another video of the performance in here, and there is a video that begins the performance that's actually in this version that stayed. All the motion capture is all mainly, apart from the added ones from the previous projects, are from our dancers in Budapest. And the characters were really influenced by them, actually, to be honest, because we worked a lot with Skinner releasing technique and the imagery, and then some of the characters were modelled from some of that imagery that was put into Midjourney, but the script was altered. It wasn't James Skinner's exact words from her poetic haikus, but it was adapted to create the avatars. But the dancers worked with those images in class, in rehearsal, to make the actual motion capture phrases.
I have two more questions, and the second one, I think I mean, we could continue for a long time dissecting this, but I think it's a good answer. I have two more questions, and the second one has been partly answered. So I would like to talk about the topic of Nino, right? Yes. Which is the novice scene.
Yes.
And so this idea that we are increasingly connected, and that AI is, gaining more and more powers and capabilities. So I would like to ask you, how did you express those concepts through your work, and how did that influence your work, and even the name of the piece, the Nino, or Nothing in, Nothing out? Could you maybe comment on that, how those theories and those concepts influenced the work, and how did you materialize them in work?
Well, Nothing in, Nothing out is an old computer programming kind of thing. Nonsense in, nonsense out, they sometimes call it. And also we wanted to mess with you as well.
Nothing unique.
Right. So there's that part. The James Lovelock's Nova Scene, which is this nice slim book that he wrote just before his death, it continues his ideas about the Gaia theory, which is that Earth is one total ecosystem, and everything interacts with everything else. It can't be separate. It's not like humans are like, we're humans over here and the environment's over there. In the Nova Scene, he says that instead of a Terminator like proper Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator style future of AI nuking, instead of nuking the humans or whatever, in war against machines, all that kind of shit. He's a bit more positive about it, and he said that the artificial general intelligence, a sort of singularity moment happens, that it will be smart enough to realize that it couldn't actually exist in a vacuum, and it would actually need an environment. It would need a biosphere, and by necessity it would need to keep humans around as part of that to help maintain the biosphere as it is, and possibly it might think it would be a good idea to actually clean it up. and possibly restore some nature. And so humans would be kept around as useful or potentially useful pets, or even collaborators, we don't know. So we were reflecting on those kind of ideas for this. And using that concept, we thought, let's get the AI to write some nonsense about AI. And so we came up with all of this text. Originally, we really wanted to have some subtitles. And so the text was going to be the subtitles. And then we started thinking about, somebody said, okay, you don't want to have subtitles on screen because it means people can't look at the picture. They have to be reading the subtitles. And some people like that and some people really hate it. Anyway, so we thought, okay, we'll go for a voiceover. And so we were like, okay, naturally we're using some AI tools. Let's look at an AI voiceover thing where it converts text into speech. And we looked at the system, and one of the things you can get is where you give it a 1 minute sample of a voice, and then it generates all of the words that can be said, and it just can say your text for you. So we started off with Werner Herzog because I had a really good 1 minute clip of him, and it's very distinctive, and he's distinctive, right? And so
he might come back actually.
And it was hilariously good and accurate at how it could actually speak as Werner Herzog, and he said all this stuff, but it was kind of comedy, pretentious.
It was super pretentious.
And because the text the ChatGPT wrote about the Novacine, which is a fiction, speculative fiction, is kind of nonsense. So it kind of sounds like a story, and it kind of reads like a story, and it does go in a circle, and it's kind of quite a lot of text. And it's talking about cleaning up the environment and after the Anthropocene and all this kind of stuff. But it's kind of nonsense. Sometimes it poetically starts to make sense, and then it slips again. And so we thought, okay, we're not going to use Werner because Werner's like, and also copyright issues, don't know. So we thought, we've got a friend who's an actress, and she's been involved in the previous iteration of WoW and Flutter, and she's given us some really nice feedback. And we said, what do you think about? We'll take a sample of your voice because that'd be really quick for you. You just do it in between whatever, and she was like, no, that will be terrible because we don't know what's going to happen to the data. So I was like, okay, this is a great question. So I got ChatGPT to read all the terms and conditions, and it said, don't give your voiceover, because what it'll do is it says on the website that it's fine and it's not going to do anything with the data, but actually in the terms and conditions they give themselves all these things. They're like, oh, in case they want to do something. So she was correct, but then I was like, okay, so now we can't use your stupid voiceover. Now you're going to have to say all the words. And she did. So she did, and then yeah, and then so the obviously the voice direction was kind of like make it like Linda Hamilton in Terminator doing that final speech.
But Liz, who was playing it earlier today, said that her voice was like weirdly a skin relieving technique.
There's a connection.
And practitioner, which I was like, oh right. Interesting. So now I have to look up that practitioner.
Great. So that brings us to our last question, which is the relationship of this piece with MODINA and the topics of MODINA, which is artificial intelligence. And we already mentioned the role of AI it came up in a few pieces. So how do you see this work in relation to your previous work? So the novelties, any new aspects that you explore that you hadn't explored before, and how did the topics of MODINA, well, audience interaction goes without saying because it permeates the piece, but artificial intelligence. So you already mentioned conceptually the Novacine and the concepts behind it. You mentioned the text generation, but as I understand, when we talked about this, there's also the image generation, right, of the avatars and other aspects. Maybe you want to, and the camera, the tracking. So there's a lot of this.
That was the call out, right? So we laid it on the trowel, right? We're on the brief. We're read the memo. We're trying to do the right thing here.
Well done. Well, you think almost that way.
I mean, I suppose, I don't know.
What's the importance for you of this, and how do you see it influencing moving forward? I think that's what
I think it's extraordinary how many programs and different things we use that actually already have some form of AI or machine learning anyway. And so,
well, they say they do.
Oh, right? They say they do, yeah. So certain things that we've been using for a long time actually have like snippets of things.
But do you see your work, this kind of approach affecting your work moving forward, or do you see this as a detour and then?
I think you can hardly avoid it. I don't think it'll become, I think we were really obviously following the brief in a way. The next work, I'm not sure.
Because
yes, we probably will. Gesture recognition, we'll use the gesture recognition.
So let's to unpack it a bit, because in the MODINA residency, what we actually wanted to do, we didn't actually necessarily want to make a piece. That wasn't about necessarily making a piece of artwork. We actually wanted to research and look at markerless motion capture systems, because previously we used things like OptiTrack and Vicon, where you stick on the ping pong balls kind of thing and all that, and that's the camera system. And the problem with those is that's great if you're doing your performers, and a lot of people are doing live shows with the performers animating avatars, and we've done that in the past and for VR stuff with Dazzle. But then we were like, oh, actually, to get the audience involved, it'd be really nice if people could just jump in. So therefore, you have to go to a markerless system. And so we looked at lots of different markerless mocap systems during the residency, and we tried a few. And so there are expensive ones and there are sort of cheaper ones. And so expensive one would be like something like a Capture, which is like, I don't know, it's like 14 grand or something, and you need a bunch of cameras, and you need a bunch of computer, and you need, anyway, all this stuff. And then this one, which is like Radical, which is kind of cheapo, but for what it does, I mean, for the cost, it's kind of amazing. But interestingly for me, or rather, not interesting for you, but interesting for me because I'm a nerd, is that the all of the big optical motion capture players, developers, they are now starting to build in like AI things and markerless, because they're realizing that they've already got all the studios they've already set up for their clients have already got a whole camera system built in, which is actually a bunch of high resolution cameras already. And so they're really starting to think about and doing a lot of kind of mixed mode. And for example, the Capture is doing something with OptiTrack, so you can have somebody without somebody's in their normal clothes and they've got a full skeleton and fingers and face and everything, and then you've got somebody in a mocap suit. So it's the way the things go, and I foresee that in the future the full body kind of mocap will be built into lots of things, and it won't even be a thing. It'll just be like it'd be like I don't know, something, it'll be not ubiquitous, but it won't be like a hard problem.
And you're talking about the future, just to wrap up my part before we go to the audience. So in terms of the future, you mentioned that this your next project will incorporate parts of this. You want to mention that already?
Yeah.
Without revealing any spoilers?
Yeah, we're not going to do too many spoilers. The objects will be captured, maybe not people. But we don't know how that's going to work out.
Post-human.
Because post-human
approach.
We're going to be working with a 360 screen, so it'll be an adventure.
So there's a thing of we've been commissioned to make a piece, and they want a sort of audience in the middle. They've got a system with stereo glasses, and then it's stereo projections all around, and they've got like a sonar type tracking system called Ferris, which I'm not familiar with, and they've got an OptiTrack mocap system, but for tracking objects rather than skeletons. So we'll probably this is going to influence that. But I think the good thing for us that we've got out of this is just using the really nice game controllers.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, because that's been
explore that the affordances of it and the kind of universal appeal of it in a sense.
Well, yeah, and it seems really obvious, but actually the like this one is like an 8-bit do one, and it's like 2.4 gigahertz rather than Bluetooth, so it just connects instantly, and the range is miles, and it's right rather than, because I've got an old what do you call it, Xbox One, and it's like a Bluetooth one, and the drivers and it's just horrible. It's kind of horrible to use, and if they get de-paired, it's like a nightmare.
I suppose we could say a little bit more about the piece. It is still thinking of the Nova scene, and it'll be called Nova, and the audience will be really influencing what's happening visually. There might be guides, but not necessarily dancers, but there might be guides in that.
So I'm happy that these topics of MODINA, of AI and audience interaction are going to be even pushed further in. So maybe it's time to ask the audience for questions, comments.
Further questions you want to?
Please, yeah. Kodulane.
It's because we said it all. We said it all.
Environment.
We explained everything so well. There's like nothing left to
No,
say.
I'm sure.
I can get things started, but if anyone's welcome to join. Because I'm aware that this skin releasing concepts have been part of like the quite foundational from the starting point. And because you mentioned in this talk something that's quite resonating, I think in a lot of interaction design research I've been doing, I've also experienced what you have just described, that is like when there is not this very instantaneous, but instead very slow or emerging response or interaction that can be seen as something that's quite difficult or even causing some frustration. But bringing that back to my kind of baseline understanding of the skin releasing, it's very somatic. It prioritizes things like sensation over utility and goal-driven interaction. So kind of an open question, but yeah, I would love to hear more. What is your experience or your motivation with applying that approach into the digital world, where the digital world is normally has this expectation of something that is, very responsive, very utility, bringing something that is more sensorial and can be slower as a result. What has your experience been of that?
There's lots of things in there. Thanks, Will. I suppose really, I suppose I just really like the poetics, and so, and I really enjoy how others adapt to those poetics. I'm not going to answer this properly, I think. Sometimes the terminology and the language in the pedagogy touches on not necessarily things like synesthesia, but touch on, repetition, sounds, and so on, which conjure up all sorts of things, like dew landing on your hair, for example, would be something in a skin of release class, and what that does to you now listening to that. And in this piece, we have a very, very rainy world with lightning, and it's immediately cold with the sound. It's immediately cold. And you can conjure that with sound, you can conjure that with color, you can conjure these things with temperature of an installation. So I think it's that language. I'm quite interested in the language of it and how that enters the tissues or enters it enters people in different ways. Because some people respond to touch, some people can go into their imaginations with the poetics. And I guess one of the main things, which may be less of a stumbling block with things that are instant gratification, if you want instant gratification, it's not necessarily, you won't come to a skin of release class. You wait, and there's something else that happens. It's a becoming, yeah, I think, yeah, sometimes you can be in a class and it can be really unrewarding and feel really awkward, and your body feels really awkward. Other times you can be flying as if there's no gravity. It's an extraordinary feeling. I guess I want to imbue some of those things or give people that aspect. And the main thing about it is it's creative and it's improvisational. And I think that's very much part of, the idea of play. And play is quite serious. Can be quite serious play. As children know.
It's wonderful, thank you.
Any more questions?
I've been thinking about this, or I was thinking about this instant gratification part. And I think here this instant gratification, or I'm grateful immediately if I grab a controller, because I push a button and the dude starts to run. Push another button, camera turns, and I'm already very thankful. So I think it's what else have you been thinking? Also coming from more like a bodily practices, like how what the feedback could be, like what else feedback could be in the space or in sound or in smell or in physics, like is there something else that we could approach an artist in like let's say a gallery setting while we're playing? Do you know what I mean? No?
It's so funny. It's so funny because we've talked about other interfaces that we've used before, which have been, like a journey in the Arctic, and you're using a yacht wheel, and it was really, and ropes. And then another interface we had was oars for rowing around a virtual lake. And so we had actually friction, and there was something really felt physical. You had to really row, and people were not used to rowing. People were trying to row like this going forwards. You row backwards. So there are all these things we've experimented before, but I don't know, maybe you could talk about it with this particular. You mean this or just with the controls?
No, I was thinking like if my input is very small, but reward is huge. Like out of proportion.
You mean like what else can it be that that the avatar starts dancing or running, or
Maybe
you
take
can
them out
change
from the screen.
like what are how it can answer or can reply to your
Interesting
approach.
Just give me a great idea. There's something I do, which is really, I don't know, I was trying to explain to Liz earlier, was that when I can adopt a character and it happens, as it's changing, I pull the sequence of the mocap sequence, but I also do the camera turn at the same time. And you get this total, it's really like, out of all those particles comes this sort of, and it dances, and then there might be another dancer. So there's this sort of, not centrifugal aspect, but there's something occurring in that, that's whipping up some sort of energy, which I think is what you maybe tapping into some sort of energy that's.
Because it's such a beautiful setup what you have here, and it's not, it's what's happening on the screen is only one thing of our installation, right?
I think if we had the other one being able to work, if we had the other one, the other side of the AI camera being able to be in this world, then we would be able to go to that place. But at the moment, it's not implemented in that.
The future development is like a two-person mode, but that brings the complexity
massive.
The complexity, multiplies rather than just adding a bit on.
Did you want to say anything?
Well, I was going to say about one of our musicians, Nick Nell, that's done half of the sound for this project. He's very interested in smells.
Yes.
And we have become very interested in smells and scent diffusers.
It's become almost as much of an obsession as camouflage, hasn't it?
So we've been thinking a lot about appropriate smells for different environments, and so Nick knows somebody who's a scent technologist who made some smells, smells that don't actually exist on Earth, and things like stuff like made out of weird like chemicals, things that don't smell like anything. So like maybe for the plastic world, which is a 1,000,000% artificial, something like this weird smell, but then maybe it's horrible. But I mean, I like you can get the scent of after rain and all these kind of things. And it might be, but then some people are really sensitive to it, so maybe it's horrific. Yeah, I don't know. But also as well, then you think, okay, you're just going to start piling novelty things on. Maybe it
starts to become theme park. Suddenly it goes into theme park mode.
But then there's also theme parks. But there's also theme parks, right? Because like the Disney, the amount of money that Disney are actually spending on some of these things and some of the rides, it's kind of amazing. So, So I don't know. It's there's a kind of we're always trying to think about there's a kind of complexity and how easy, you know, like how good it is for the audience compared to how hard it is to actually set up. And there's a kind of point where it really crosses, and it depends what your pain threshold is, and things like that. And sometimes so like when we're doing wow and flutter, the complexity level, like the pain, that was huge. And when we did a piece called Dazzle, and it was very satisfying for we did 76 shows at Venice Immersive, and we had like 3 people in VR, like outside in the space, and they're seeing live mocaps coming in and animating avatars and different. And then there's in the main space, people can sit and watch like an audience, and there's like a virtual camera showing a projection of these performers who are right there being motion captured. And then there's another 2 people, audience members who are being mocapped, and they're in VR and they're on stage. And so they're
And a whole dance piece.
So this was like the fun level was extremely high. So the complexity pain barrier was like gigantically enormous. And
But
so
you always look, I mean, yeah, but those projects, yeah.
but once you
yeah.
But once you, because once you start to expect, you have to start to expect lots of things, lots of engagement from your audience. Maybe they're not actually prepared to do it. So just to give the example of in Venice, they had there was a system where people, anyway, there's a tickets thing and whatever it was, and then there was basically one of our invigilators was in charge of like finding out, you know, picking somebody or picking 2 people that were going to be mocap on stage, right, doing the thing, right, live during the show for 25 minutes or whatever it was. And these people, one time they came and they really wanted to do it. They were like, it's got to be me, 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 it's got to be me. And so we're like, okay, you can be the live mocap person, you guys can do it. And they put the mocaps and everything, and they did the performance like this for like 25 minutes.
They were so dazzled.
They were just like this. It's like kind of like this VR, right? It's like fully. They could walk around. You know, it's like full body VR avatars. I mean, it was the whole thing. It was like the complexity level, the expense, the cost, everything. It was like they were getting this like kind of Rolls Royce level experience with like live performers doing the thing, performing with dogs with them, and they're just standing like a bunch of lumps, and and it's like, and we're like, oh, screw it, man, we should just do like an animation. You know, it's just an animation, and we just put it into a film festival. Like my buddy's a filmmaker, and he's just like, oh, I've got my, you know, I do a film freeway, and then I'm in 35 festivals. You know, just taking me 20 minutes to apply for all those things, and you know.
But also, there's another offshoot of Nova, which will be a furtherance of Wow and Flutter, which was dancers in remote locations, 2 dancers in, you know, 500 miles apart, and meeting in a virtual space.
Yeah.
And that with 2 musicians as well. So that's Bruno talks about the complexity of that was extraordinary, because you have 2 studios, but we're actually looking at taking that to the countryside. So you have a sophisticated virtual production house, and you have a barn, and you have the performance in both places. Yeah, and it's incredible what you learn about the dancers' capability and physical intelligence that they have, that we all have, but yeah, in scenarios like that, how they can orientate themselves and find themselves in that virtual world is something else. Actually, yeah, that's the other project, isn't it?
We don't know how to do nothing else, do we? Don't know how to do anything else. Probably. It's really simple.
I
like now, I think.
We could do it.
So you're talking about this complexity, but also like this can be like, I can imagine you can package it for like, for example, distribution with Steam. And is that something that you're interested in, or like, is that something that you don't want people to like play at home and, you know, YouTube streamers playing your Nino and.
Well, this is a really good point, because when we were making Swan Quake, we went through this whole debate about you know, like with us and people we're working with about whether like with our musicians, things about whether we should be, and then we're like, actually no, we're artists with our massive egos. We have to fully control the experience. It has to be an installation when people come. But now I'm kind of a bit more relaxed about it, and I don't know, and it seems like maybe it's a kind of good thing. But the trouble, I'm on this kind of Reddit thread, and I'm seeing all these indie game, like proper indie game developers, and they're developing their games in Steam, and then it's basically it's all these. They're having this big pity party where they're like people are wish listing the thing, right? And then they're not getting, nobody's downloading it, nobody's getting it and stuff. I don't know. And the thing, and I was like, okay, because we've done stuff where we did app development, we made like
AR
apps and things, and they're on the Apple App Store, just dealing with the pain of the platform. You just like, oh God, it seems like a great idea, and it'd probably be easier to like get a big bunch of like USB sticks and just like copy the thing onto all of those and just like post it to people when they. And you think about going back to like early 1980s, like UK game development, which I was too young to be a part of, unfortunately. And it was the games were on cassettes, and it was like, and so when you bought a game, like if I bought a game for my ZX81, it was, you know, you send off like £5 or whatever it was from a small ad in a mag, and then it would come in the post, and then you'd get this thing, and it's a cassette, and then you've got to press play and press the thing on the thing at the same time. And it's kind of like, oh, like maybe it's just cottage industry, and it's a bit weird. But then you also are you taking up because one of the problems with the digital is, of course, it's I mean, it has a couple of problems. Well, it has many problems, but the ephemerality about lasting for the future, and maybe it's. But also about it's when it's infinitely reproducible, like people think digital stuff is, then it sort of has no value. And so if we give it away, if we give it away or we sell it for like nothing, right? Just to cover the whatever costs or whatever, are we devaluing it massively? Is that really bad? I don't know. And then also as well, there's another issue about, let's say we're just selling it on Steam. I don't know how it works, but let's say it's a £5 or something, and whatever. I don't know. People aren't going to pay a £5, unless it's £1 or whatever it is. No, okay, it's just free. I don't know. It's nothing. And what about all the performers and their performances, which we're basically, you know, how do they? What's the deal of compensation for them?
Sure.
And so far, how we've been doing it, because we don't really get paid enough to give them royalties, but when we actually hire them and work with them, we pay them really well to begin with for the initial performances and stuff. And so, and I don't know, I don't really know what the answer is. It's more like a question.
And the fact that you're saying it to me, this is quite a simple setup, okay, with the house, the kind of house arrangement, sort of lounge arrangement. But Bruno's alluded to Swan Quake, and there was something about it, the fact that one of the rooms within that world, we had vinyl prints. So wherever it went, it was in a room as well, that was in the world sort of thing. So there was a time when we actually enjoyed the fact that audience members were walking in the game for real, sort of for real. So we did that a lot, didn't we? Like we printed out rooms and made and built rooms with different game artifacts in it, and yeah. So I think in some ways wouldn't want to lose that, because I think that was actually supremely immersive. Yeah, probably need to finish.
Yeah.
4 minutes over. Who'd have thought?
Just
Started also. Over. I don't know if there's a quick last question. Otherwise,
what kind of game would you like me to?
so I think we should. Sorry.
I'll post the Zoom.
Yeah.